Hi everyone, I'm Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in making the All the Time necklace. This is going to be based on right angle weave and making little boxes. Gather up your materials, whatever they may be. There's a list before, but again, you can use tons of stuff for this design. And join me in making this fun, versatile beaded bead. So a little bit ago, I brought you the Anytime necklace. This All the Time necklace is going to be used in that same manner, where you can use a majority of bicones, of rounds, of rondelles, and really mix up the design. That was based on a right angle weave, and this is also going to be based on right angle weave. We're going to be doing a cube or cubic right angle weave, kind of joining the spots together, but we're just going to be making one small cube. You can see some of the examples here. I've done it all one color, and I'm going to be adding a number of different colors together. We're going to be using two colors, that way we can keep track of which beads are going down the center of our box and which beads are actually to the top and the bottom of the box. I want you to have some .006 wildfire beading thread, and I like the thermally bonded thread for this rather than say a KO or a Miyuki because it makes the boxes a little bit stiffer and more sturdy. I also have some 11O seed beads to seam up the top and the bottom of the boxes as we create and make them. We're going to be using two different color bicones, and I have the Potomac Crystals in the metallic transparent purple, the metallic purple iris, and then the Alexandrite color as well. And 11Os are the Miyuki Duracoat silver color. I have some black thread. I wouldn't recommend black thread for what I'm doing, but I have the black thread so you're able to see it and can keep track of the design. The first thing I want you to do while you're doing this design is to put a stop bead on the project to get started. The stop bead is going to go onto the thread, to the very base of the thread, and it's going to go then through, have the thread go through 2 times away from that little piece of thread at the end. You only need enough thread at the end that you can tie off comfortably and kind of get a knot there at the end. We're going to be adding 4 beads into our right angle weave unit. I want you to add 1 in the purple, 1 Alexandrite, 1 purple, and 1 Alexandrite. Let those all drop down next to your stop bead as you're working. Once those are next to the stop bead, we're going to round them out and create a little square out of them. To do so, go back through that first metallic purple, and I'm going from the stop bead away from the stop bead and bringing the needle out. That's going to give me that first kind of section of the actual cube. What I'm going to do now is I'm also going to go through that Alexandrite bead, so my needle is coming out after the first Alexandrite bead. From here, we're going to add our next right angle weave unit on. I want you to take another one of the purple, Alexandrite, and then a purple. The purple is going to run down the sides of this right angle piece. The Alexandrite is going to run down the middle. With your needle and thread, after putting those 3 beads on, I want you to take the needle through that same Alexandrite bead from the other side. What this is going to do is create a loop and bring this into another one of our squares or our little raw units. We now have 3 beads down the center, and we have 4 to the top and bottom. I want you to get your needle and thread out the Alexandrite again. So following the thread line, we're going to go through the next, which would have been the first one that we added, purple iris bead, and then also, like we did before, through the Alexandrite bead. When we're coming out the Alexandrite bead, I want you to add 3 more beads again. We're going to add the purple iris, another Alexandrite, and another purple iris. These 3 beads we're going to take with the needle through the Alexandrite bead that the thread is coming out of. That's going to put 2 more of my purple iris along the top and the bottom, and my 4th bead here in my Alexandrite along the side. You're going to start thinking of these kind of as the walls of my right angle weave, that Alexandrite color, and the top and bottom, or the roof and the floor, are going to be that purple color. Take the thread and needle, just like we've been doing, through the next 2 beads. So it's going to go through the purple iris, and then also through that Alexandrite bead and out. At this point here, we want to round out or produce our cube. Right now this is flat. We want it to be 3-dimensional. We already have our 4 walls in place, and we have 3 of our ceilings and 3 of our floors. I'm going to add 1 more floor because we want to get 4. Then I'm going to take my needle and thread and jump over to that purple alexandrite, or to that first alexandrite, that first left-hand wall. So we're going from the right-hand wall here, adding a bead in that purple color, and then going through the left-hand wall. At the top here then, I want to add 1 more of my purple, and I'm going to come down the right-hand wall. So I added a purple iris, and now I'm coming back through that first alexandrite bead that the thread was coming out of, making sure that both of those beads, both of those purple iris beads that I added, stay to the same side. I'm going to pull this nice and tight. As you can see, now you have this little cube. The cube again consists of 4 beads along the middle that are going to be the walls. Then I have my 4 beads along the top that are those purple iris, and I have 4 beads along the bottom that are the purple iris. What I want to do now is strengthen this cube that I've created. To strengthen it, go ahead and go through the first purple iris bead that sits after the alexandrite that your thread was just coming through. We're going to connect all the beads along the floor here, all of those purple beads, by adding an 11L to our thread and needle and sewing through the next purple bead along the floor. Again, 11L. Take your needle and thread through the next purple bead along the floor. 11L through the next bead along the floor. 1 more goes on. And you're going back through that first purple bead that your thread was coming out of. Not through the 11L, just through that purple bead. When you give a nice tight pull, it helps to tighten up that box, and it puts my 4 11O seed beads between those 4 purple bicones. To get to the top and to do the same thing along the top, take your thread and needle through one of those walls, through that alexandrite bead, up towards the top, and then through one of the purple that's going to be along that top or that ceiling. Along the ceiling here, those 4 beads, we're also going to put on 11O seed beads. So put on 4 11O seed beads that are going to sit between each of the bicones. As I was mentioning before, you can really use any beads for this. In some of my examples scattered around, I have bicones, I have rondelles, I have round beads, and wanted to show you that you can use a variety of different sizes, different shapes, and really create these little right angle weave boxes. Again, we're going to make sure that we get an 11O seed bead between each one of our purple iris bead that sits along the top here. The last thing I want to do is come back to my stop bead, and I'm going to take off that stop bead and tie these 2 thread ends together into a knot. Take your needle and thread through the next 11O, through the next purple bead here, and then your threads meet, your 2 end threads. Go ahead and slide off that starter thread, or that stopper bead rather, next to the starter thread. Take the 2 thread ends and simply tie them together into a knot. There's 1 right over left. I switch hands, and then I tie another knot left over right. Ideally, you'll have more thread on your piece of needle that you can take your thread burner or your thread zap, heat it up, and simply burn those thread edges down. Taking your thread zap then, go ahead to those extra little thread ends and burn them flush against the project. Remember, this is kind of the most simplistic way to make a cube. You end up with 4 beads on the top that have 11O seed beads, your 4 walls to kind of create your beaded bead, and then your 4 beads along the top. Whether or not you do this in a rondelle, in a bicone, in a round bead, you're going to get kind of a different look along it. You can again do all kinds of different ones and do the rounds, the bicones, different sizes, and really change it up. You're just taking that right angle weave and creating these little boxes going around in that circle. If you want to, you can even change up the size that you do. You don't need to do a box and do 4. You can do 5, you can do 6. I like the boxes to keep it nice and symmetrical. Again, you're going to end up with 4 beads along the middle. And so I did this one in 2 colors so you could see the alexandrite there, as well as 4 on the top and 4 on the bottom. Now we're going to continue to make all of our beads here in our color wave theme, and then I'm going to go in and create this all the time necklace by adding in some extra crystals to stop along the ends and some seed beads to make my chain. Once you're done creating all of your little beaded bead boxes, you need to decide how you want to string them. I want to keep with a nice kind of flowy feel with something a little bit longer that I can slip over my neck. So I've decided to go with the beading cord, and I have a size 6 beading cord because I really like the feel of silk thread. I also don't want to use a clasp, so I'm just going to tie the ends together. What you're going to do if you want to use that silk, you can use 4 too if you want. And I'm going to take the whole entire thing off the spool. And I chose the green color because you're really not going to see it at all. What you do see, I tried to match it up to the lightest color of my crystals. And again, I have Bicones, rounds, and Rondelles in the piece. I'm going to go ahead and take the whole thing off the silk, and I'm going to stretch it just a little tiny bit. You can pull it through a cord if you want and stretch it that way, but I'm going to tie a nice simple knot at the end of my thread. From here, I'm going to take the needle that's already attached, and I'm going to add my first crystal. To add my crystals so they don't kind of slip along the thread, I'm going to add whatever crystal I used in the little box, so in this case a 4mm round in that metallic brown iris, and I'm going to string through my box, going through with the needle and thread through one of the roofs coming out the floor, or vice versa, and then stick on another one of my same size crystals. The same size crystals, if you're using a 4mm bead, you'll use a 4mm. It'll create about a 4mm open hole. So it's going to stop the bead perfectly and create that beautiful beaded bead kind of completion look. From here, between my beaded beads, to give them a little space and let them stand on their own, I'm going to use my 11-0 seed bead. So you kind of only need one seed bead out if you want. You obviously can do this in a ton of different colors, but I'm going to go ahead, add a bunch more of my 11-0 seed beads onto my thread and needle, and then repeat that same process, going in and just doing a nice variation of what I pick up, since I did do a color kind of way and created a bunch of different colors in the middle. If you want to, you can keep that consistent. You can see I'm pulling the whole seed beads through there, spacing them out, and having some space between my crystal and my next one. I'm going to go ahead and add in about 1/2 inch of 11-0s, and then I'll get ready and pick up my next bead, which I think I'm going to go with my Bicones next, putting a Bicone at each end to create my little beaded bead effect for that all the time necklace. Once you get done with your beaded bead making and doing a lot of those little right angle weave boxes, by the time you get them on the thread and onto the silk cording, that's when they really kind of take their form, when they go in and get that extra little bead or crystal on each end. I've gone ahead and I've strung as many as I want, and I'm literally just going to tie the ends together. What I am going to do first is slide down a tiny bit here on my silk cording, and I'm going to cut off that actual knot. I don't want the knot to be any bigger than it has to be. And you can kind of push that in. If you want to, you can also go like this and take the end off of the first one here, take it onto your silk cording, and put it on at the very end of the last bead there. You get your last of your all the time beads on. Put that little 4mm round there, which is going to match up to my beaded bead here. And when I tie these two thread ends together, nice and tight, that knot should just disappear right in the middle of that silk cord, kind of pulling there. And I do pull it fairly tightly together because I don't want to see a lot of this thread hanging out kind of in the middle. So once it's there, you can take your snips, you can take your thread burner, and you can burn down the edge. I will warn, if you do use your thread burner, you have a little bit of a smell that comes off the silk cording, and it gets a little bit of an actual burnt look to it. You can burn it, as you can see me here, kind of getting that burn in there, but you can also take your needle nose cutters and kind of cut those off there. Do a little dab of glue if you want onto that knot, and then tuck that knot into one of your beaded beads there, and you have your beautiful little necklace here. You can make it any length that you want. You can make it a wraparound bracelet and really have fun making lots and lots, learning that kind of right angle weave, and having fun creating all of these different color combinations for this all the time necklace. Thanks so much for joining me and watching the All the Time necklace. You can see I'm modeling it and sampling it, and you can kind of play around with all the different colors and where they hang. Make it all different lengths. Again, you can make it that you can wrap it around multiple times, do a bracelet. It would even look cool on memory wire too, that you could string it on. I ended up with 13 seed beads in between each bead and kind of had fun playing with the little colors that I used. Remember, if you need any materials, in the kind of drop down below the video, there's a little show more button. It says get materials here. Click on that and you can get all your supplies from us at PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.eu. Also keep in mind, hit that little bell and the little like button. Subscribe so that way you get us when we come live, have new ideas, new suggestions, and new ways to make you a better beader. Thanks so much for watching and enjoy your own All the Time necklace.